the Two Guys, One Shaker Cup podcast, hosted by Joshua Shaw and Ryan Buckeye.
What's going on, guys and girls, boys and girls, men, women, children? I don't know who listens or watches to this anymore. All I know is people are watching and people are listening, and that's a good thing because Josh and I, we think sometimes we know what we're talking about, although there are plenty of times, Josh, that we go into a podcast and have no fucking clue what we're going to say, how we're going to say it, and how it's going to be perceived.
I think that's what makes our podcast interesting, because I think that though we throw some topics out there before, we obviously have an idea maybe what we want to maybe talk about. Even sometimes we figure that out, maybe the conversation right before we start taping. But it just makes it interesting. We don't know what's going to come out of our mouths, which is always fun from people.
It is fun. And this episode will be fun, too, because we're talking, Josh and I have a hypothetical here. It's like, hey, if we're going to start sort of a sports nutrition brand, if we're in charge of a sports nutrition / fitness brand, what 3 celebrities or ambassadors or influencers out there in the world today would we want under our corporate umbrella of sorts? And we've actually spent, if you go back and listen to previous episodes here of our podcast, we've talked about the impact of influencers and athletes on. So I highly suggest you go back and listen to that if you haven't, because it's actually, I think there's some really good content in there. But I think we've talked about that on that podcast. Like, there is a place for certain influencers and certain ambassadors to have on the team. It just needs to it has to have a synergistic effect, and it has to fit your corporate strategy or what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, everything needs to be aligned. I think especially today with just the amount of choices in the market, you tend to have to be really authentic and real with all of your decision making. So you have to really have some intention behind that. And If you don't, consumers can see right through it. So athletes, ambassadors, whatever you want to call them, they need to really match what products and brand or whatever you're kind of trying to reach in your business, or it's just going to look really fake, and somebody's going to have a substitute that they can go to that's a lot more authentic.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree. And this episode forces Josh and I to get up with pop culture and kind of figure out like who's who out there now, because I'll full transparency. Like, I don't follow many fitness influencers on Instagram. I don't spend a lot of time following what they're doing or what they're saying. I don't really put my efforts into that platform. I follow some celebrities. So when we actually pitched this question, I was like, oh shit, now I have to think about this a little bit. And like I mentioned to you before we came on the air, I had one for sure that anybody listening to this or watching this probably knows who I'm going to pick. But I'm super excited to see who you got, because you're probably going to name 3 people that I've never heard of before. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that you're going to name people I've probably never heard of before.
No, you're gonna know all these people, and they're gonna be somebody it's gonna make sense, because part of this podcast, the hypothetical, is around making sure we did align with the business. So we actually have to hypothetically create a business in the sense of just, top line. Like, what is this actually going to be product wise, or what are we going to go for from a customer acquisition or positioning? So this isn't I think it'll make sense when you start hearing what I'm going to be talking about.
So I think we should start off first, like, what's the premise of our brand, right? Like, what's the concept of our brand? Therefore, when we start naming people to fit that, people can kind of understand. I can start. So and this is going to give away my first celebrity anyway, because I buy all his shit. I single-handedly keep Under Armour and Dick's Sporting Goods in business with my purchase of Project Rock gear. And what resonates well with me is like his taglines: be the hardest worker in the room, and like blood, sweat, respect. The first 2 are given, the last one is earned. Like, that resonates well with me, and I've always kind of taken that into my personal life and how I approach my professional career. And it's like, that's the type of sports nutrition, or that's the type of fitness company I'd want to create, is like always be driving and striving to be the hardest worker in the room. Like, no one is going to fucking outwork me. And that is the concept of the brand. That would be what the products that we carry is like. Listen, to be the hardest worker in the room, you need the hardest work in fitness, the hardest work in sports nutritional supplements available. So that would be sort of the concept, the premise of my brand that I would want to create. And then therefore the celebs that I pick or the influencers that I pick underneath that sort of fit the bill.
I think ours are kind of a little bit similar in a way, a little bit different also, but a few degrees similar in the sense that mine's also going to be around kind of hard work or productivity optimization, or just the idea of, working harder, but also working smarter. So my kind of lifestyle brand in ... like the whole lifestyle brand, like, no, not copying anybody, by just lifestyle branding is a much bigger concept than one particular company. Just because somebody might have lifestyle in their name doesn't mean that they're copying another company that has lifestyle in their name or in their marketing or whatever. But the concept is more around just encompassing everything that has to do with a lifestyle around maybe optimizing your productivity and everything like that. So it's going to be a little bit different than maybe fitness based, but it's also going to have some supplements and some different things in there that cross over into our world.
I love it. And now I'm very interested to see who you picked, and that fits that bill. Because in my head, I'm starting to formulate some ideas based on what you just talked about, which is cool. I'm glad, like, similar but different to some extent. And like I mentioned, I structured my business based after one man who successfully, like, first and foremost, the reason why The Rock is my number one pick. Like, if this is a draft and I'm picking Dwayne The Rock Johnson, his line sells more for Under Armour than anybody else that they've ever signed in the history of that company. Like, Forbes keeps putting out articles on the impact that The Rock's line has had, not only for Under Armour, but just this week, Forbes launched an article from the CEO of Dick's Sporting Goods saying, like, his line turned around our company. It helped us do well. And when somebody at a retail store says, literally, this one person's like signature line is helping us turn our shit around, that's impactful and for the right reason. And the reason being, like, he has all these followers on Instagram. He, at least in the public eye, he's seen as a good person. Now, I've heard things about him behind the scenes, all right? I think everybody has sort of a dark, shitty side of us. But at the end of the day, it's like perception is reality. We perceive him as being like this kind-hearted, big dude who made this transition from pro wrestling, also another reason why I love him, because that's the world I come from, into acting, which everybody told him he's never going to make it. And he has this phenomenal story. He talks about $7 in his pocket when he got cut from the Calgary Stampeders and he didn't know what the fuck he was going to do. He got evicted as a kid. Like, he is the story that we all can, like, believe and grasp onto. Whether it's true or not is another question. I believe it to be true because I trust what he says, but it's a motivating story of this guy who lived in Hawaii, evicted from the island, got evicted out of multiple homes, couldn't I mean, him and his family were like, there was nothing. And now he is the highest paid actor in Hollywood, or his movies gross more money than anybody else. And it's based on that concept and that premise of being the hardest worker in the room. Like, he refuses to be outworked by anybody. And whether he is or isn't, it's showing in what's going on in not only Hollywood, but pop culture, to the point where I think I've talked about this on this podcast before. I admittedly voted for him as president in the last presidential election. And I will do the same next November when given my opportunity to put Dwayne The Rock Johnson in for president come 2020. I'm going to do that.
That's probably one of the most interesting write-ins possible.
I spelled his name wrong as well. That's how serious I was about it. I spelled it wrong. What's wrong with me?
Oh, man. I'd actually be curious to see how many other people just in the United States wrote him in as a vote. I'd imagine at least a few dozen. I don't know.
I think there's a lot more than you think. And here, I mean, I remember previous to that election that somebody had submitted his information into, like, the Republican Party or maybe it was like a third party as a presidential candidate. So then we covered the story at FI because it was relevant and it went nuts. Like, it went gangbusters because people were so excited about The Rock running for president. And it always comes up, and he's always getting asked the question in the media, like, will you run for president? And he's never said no. At this point, Josh, anything is possible. Anything is absolutely possible. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor. Jesse Ventura was a governor. Donald Trump is our president. Anything is possible in the world. So don't rule it out. Don't rule it out. Rock 2020. Let's go.
I agree. This is going to get us off track a little bit, but who would you like to have as his running mate?
I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin, obviously.
Oh, that makes sense.
Rock Austin, baby. Rock Austin 2020. There's no other combo that could ever work. They would just be stomping mud holes in everybody and chugging beers at the White House. Not much different than it is now. So let's go.
I think this is probably where our conversation needed to go. That was super interesting. I it's like the presidential election being run by The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's like, I mean, all of us millennials that grew up around the heyday of that phase of wrestling would vote because that was our guys. I mean, I remember that back in middle school and all that.
Austin 316 shirts would make a comeback for sure. All right, buddy. So that's my first overall draft pick on my and by the way, if I was able to afford The Rock, I wouldn't be able to afford paying any employees, my mortgage, anything else. He would be way too expensive.
Yeah. I mean, the people that I'm going to pick, they're not even going to say yes at all. I wouldn't even have the money to pay them. So it's fine where your thought is. I guess to take one step back before I name maybe somebody on mine, like what kind of products, I guess, or maybe like what totally would you be offering like in your company? I mean, obviously The Rock is going to be a part of it, but is it going to be like more traditional sports nutrition products? Is it going to be maybe some fragment or some hardcore thing? What is it going to be?
No, traditional sports nutrition products with an emphasis on apparel as well. I mean, considering what he did for Under Armour, I'm going to take that and have it for mine. But just keep it simple, stupid. Mine would be more just sports nutritional products at this point.
Does the Rock, has he ever endorsed anything or has he ever shown maybe what he takes?
No, I mean, well, there's been pictures of him on like Instagram in his trailer. He has like Vitargo, he has Optim Nutrition, like gold standard, just like your traditional stuff. But he does. I mean, he could come out with a supplement line and he would kill it.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked he hasn't yet, and maybe there's a reason why. But like outside of his Under Armour contract and now his strategic partnership with Voss Water, there's nothing out there.
Yeah. Okay.
And I will fully admit, I buy Voss Water now because of that partnership. I really do. And it's a cool bottle. It's a really cool bottle. And it's also $4 a bottle, which is a complete fucking ripoff. But I buy it.
You're like the biggest fanboy ever for The Rock.
I mean, it's the only person, the only man crush, the only celebrity I would lose my shit over a meeting. Everybody else, don't care. Him, I care.
That's funny. So I guess to jump into maybe my side, my first draft pick per se, I'm gonna first cover maybe around like products, what I'm gonna offer.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I think it's like I said, I'm gonna have some supplements, the idea of maybe like some nootropics or kind of brain enhancing type of products, but I'm gonna kind of go bigger than that and figure some food, some beverage, maybe some sleep type products to optimize that side of it, and then outside of just the products. Because I'm going full lifestyle, I'm going to be looking at maybe like some devices or maybe some like software, hardware things that you can implement to optimize your lifestyle. Bunch of like different tech solutions because I'm going to be like trying to create this like solution or like this complete loop of like personalized everything, like something that's like super optimized to that individual person. So the person that I'm going to pick.
Reading a lot of this DNA testing shit, haven't you?
Yeah. I'm getting like super into this like epigenetics and like all this kind of like like all this kind of like crazy. So I don't know why, because
to
I'm
which
not
everybody, for those listening and watching, to which when he posted this on his social page, everybody, the comments were, "This is bullshit. This is a hoax. This is not true." Like it's great feedback.
I know. I love it because people are only seeing like what all this is right now. I believe, and I've said it even in the video that I posted, like personalized nutrition to like what it is today is a gimmick. It's just all about acquiring customer information, and there's not much true personalization in it. But I'm looking like super futuristic, like total down the line. So because of needing to have all these different like technologies and very deep thinker, very long thinker, I'm going to go with my first draft pick. I'm going to go with Elon Musk, because if somebody's going to change the way we do something, it's going to be a big thinker like that. Right. Now, I also need an executor, because he's not very great at very good at executing if he's going to be a part of my business as well. Because obviously the guys that I'm going to probably pick, they're not just going to be posting, hey, 10% off code. I'm going to be bringing these guys in as maybe a little bit of help, because I'm not dumb enough to say that I'm smarter than Elon Musk or the other guys that are on my list. I'm going to lend my ear to whatever they got to say, because I think they're going to be able to help me with my supplement brand, I guess.
And also having Elon Musk on your team is not bad, because you get free Teslas, and then you get like free space shuttles and everything else that his fucking brain is talking about. I mean, that's a total like brand alignment, 100% based on what you want to do. I mean, like this personalized approach to biohacking of sorts, I guess. I don't know. I don't really use that word, but like, he's the type of guy, I'm sure he biohacks himself like crazy for what he does. I love it. My second pick is, I'm going to go female on this one, would be Serena Williams. So I'm sticking along the lines of like higher end celebrities. Serena Williams arguably could be the best athlete ever in the history of any sports. And we typically don't give her enough credit because A, she's a female and she plays tennis. And, I just did a post on how Tiger Woods is probably the greatest athlete of my generation, not remembering like Serena's won all this shit. And not only that, she is a massive human being. Like, she is a strong human being. She would break me in two. And I think she just stands for, obviously, the concept of hard work that translates into championships, what she's done and how she's been able to inspire so many females and men, hopefully too, to like pick up a racket and play tennis and go after your dreams and your goals. Now, obviously, she has her sister Venus, which is very cool, but like they didn't come from much either. I believe their story, like they came from not a ton either, and both of them were able to be very successful her being the more successful of the sisters based on championships alone. But yeah, she's got some issues sometimes in terms of like some anger problems that her and her sister have with on court. But I think that makes her a real person, and that makes people maybe relate to them a little bit more. But I feel like based on the influence that she has had over her career and the greatness that she has shown in what she's done in professional tennis, is the definition of hard work. Like she didn't get this by just sitting around. Like she worked hard every single day at being the best in the world. And quite, selfishly, I would want a female on my team. Like I need a female. I mean, The Rock is a male. Serena is an African American female. Like it's a good thing to have. But it's more so than that, for what she stands for is really what I'd want her on the team, and to help spread this concept of like, if you be the hardest worker in the room, you can achieve and accomplish anything you want, and this is what we have to help you get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those align really well. I also like that both of your picks are super like authentic, and just also they share a lot of their world. They're very transparent in a lot of their struggles and everything, especially with like Serena Williams recently around having a child and just talking about how female athletes have to come back and how they balance motherhood to also being at the top of their game still and doing all these different things. I think that's super inspiring to a number of different categories of buyers, not just necessarily maybe like the meatheads that are going to appreciate maybe the hard work around her athletics, but just like a mom that's like trying to get back in shape or try to get more healthy for whatever reason. She can look at Serena Williams and go, damn, okay, like she could do this, and she talks about the struggles and everything. I am no much, different than her. I can do what she needs to, I could do what she's doing, and on a smaller scale, but it's inspiring nonetheless for anybody in that level. So,
100%.
I love those two picks. I am a little bit jealous that I didn't pick a female. I'm not sexist at all. I just, for some reason, that didn't come to mind. So thank you for popping that one out, Ryan, because I feel like two men on a podcast, all we do is sometimes get a little bit towards male-centered things. So that was great.
All right, hey, man. I mean, to say it wasn't intentional would be a lie. Obviously, I wanted to have a female. So like when I was thinking about this, it's like, which female would embody hard work? It's like, okay, how about the greatest athlete of all time, Serena Williams?
So if we're talking second pick now, so I'm not going to change any of my picks because you put a woman in there. So I'm going to go with what
You're such a sexist little prick.
I'm going to go straight to the top. And this is going to be a very bad pick now that I'm starting to think about what we just talked about with women. But Jeff Bezos.
Okay. Well, hey, it happens.
Hey, you know what? He had some trouble with his marriage. Yeah. I'm not going to knock him for that. That's in his personal life. Whatever he does behind closed doors is his business. But I'm picking him
because I think it became everybody's business.
It's not behind closed doors when you're the richest man in the world, unfortunately. But Jeff Bezos, I mean, the biggest, baddest dog in all of this. I mean, this guy is like, if you're going to be talking about how to optimize your life and get the most out of life and try to reach for the best in all aspects of your life, I mean, why not go after what most consider like the metric that everybody kind of bases things off and is around earning power or how wealthy. And if you have the, arguably one of the most valuable companies in the world. Right now I think maybe it's not comparable to Apple, but like long term, I think people are really thinking Amazon's going to be that company. And I don't know if you've paid attention to Jeff Bezos lately, but like he's looking a little bit more jacked lately. I think this is
what happens when you got relationships. All right.
He spends a little time in the gym now. I mean, he's not just that nerdy guy in the back office that's like typing on his computer anymore. I think he's out there putting in the time in the gym. Maybe he's training with The Rock. We don't know. Who knows? It could happen. Again, another guy that owns a rocket company, probably just shoots off in his rocket, heads over to The Rock's gym, wherever he's taping a movie right now, puts in the session, goes back over to wherever the hell he lives. He probably has 35 houses. I don't really know at this point, but that's who I'm picking. I mean, that's the guy I'm picking because I think if I'm going to have a brand ambassador, why not pick the guy at the top of the business world?
Yeah, he's a brilliant. I don't care what he does in his personal life. I mean, I know that makes some people might say I'm an ignorant asshole for that, but you know what? When it comes to business, like he built that baby. I mean, he's been at that ship at the helm of that ship for a long time. And Josh, you've talked about continually on your platforms the Amazon effect. Like that's what it's called. The Amazon so powerful that there's an effect that Amazon forced companies like Walmart and other big, large corporations to change the way that they approach their online business. I mean, Walmart.com now is Walmart.com because Amazon forced them to get there. I mean, it's very simple as that. And he's
Can you imagine just like having him in my company? I mean, I'm basically going to get preferential treatment on the biggest retail platform out there. I mean, yeah. I understand that's probably extremely illegal, but I don't care. I'm going to pull whatever stops I need to make my business successful. So good luck, Ryan, in your business and anybody else that's trying to compete against me, because I'm going to crush everybody with Jeff Bezos.
I think that's a great pitch for your consulting company. Like, you are willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that you get that company money. So if you're not hiring Josh Shaw right now, you need to be, because he will make sure that you turn a new leaf. I like it. I think both your picks so far. And in my head now, I'm starting to think of like what your third pick's going to be. And I have I'm thinking like guys who sat on the row in Shark Tank and who's written like 20 fucking books about being millionaires and being successful. So I'm thinking that your third man, because you didn't pick a woman, has probably written several books. But maybe I'm wrong. My third and final pick actually is a close friend of The Rock's, and I did this for two reasons. One, he's a very hard worker. Two, he's funny. So the comedic gold between The Rock and him, and even Serena, would be phenomenal in terms of advertising. But he's also another one who's real and authentic, and that's Kevin Hart. And so I'm a huge Kevin Hart fan as a comedian. I think he's fucking hilarious. But he's also the guy who has cheated on his wife and done all these bad things. And he writes it into his script, into his stage script. He doesn't shy from it. He's like, hey, here's what I did. I fucked up. This is what happened. People forgive him for it. There's going to be people who hate him. But he also works his ass off in the gym. He works out hard. And his story, much like The Rock's, came from nothing. And worked his way up through stand-up comedy, now a very high-paid actor in Hollywood. But it comes through that whole concept again of he didn't get it for free. It didn't come easy for him. He had to work extremely hard. Recently, just in a car accident, so like there's a lot of stuff going on there. But in terms of a brand ambassador, like he has a huge following, and just he lives that life. He loves that life, and I think he actually just came out with his own supplement company. Actually, I should know this. I believe he's attached to, or he's endorsing, a sports nutrition company. So he's obviously interested in the field. But I think having like the camaraderie between him and The Rock, because they do on-screen collabs very well together, would just benefit my brand, and I think they could do something in a different way. And I realized that all three of my picks are African Americans, or at least part of it. Like The Rock is Samoa and African American. Obviously, Serena and Kevin Hart are both African American human beings, and I don't have a problem with that at all. Like that does not bother me. Just like it doesn't bother you not to have a woman. I think. Listen, we what we're saying here is like we're picking three. I mean, if we had to pick a team, like obviously I'd probably be looking at other things too, but. These are the three people that ultimately like even came to mind, and I just had to research them briefly and be like, are they really good fits? And they're all three are very authentic. All three have very similar stories about how they came from nothing to something. They worked hard to get there, and they represent this concept of like physical fitness as well. They're all three are very good shape. They work out. They believe that working out breeds like better versions of themselves to allow them to go out and be successful for the people that they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. Another interesting point, but we were talking about like just influencers or just ambassadors overall, and we're obviously picking very large people, but out of equally massive people we could have picked, you're going to see that the final person I picked also kind of fits this bill, is that they also have a lot of really strong just like exposure out. Like they use maybe social media a lot. They use traditional media a lot in the sense of like getting themselves out there, both their story and just maybe on my side like the company or their thoughts or whatever. So I think that even if we were thinking just in micro influencer standpoint, like our brains would have thought that way anyways. We would have thought, okay, what can we get the most bang out of our buck for like exposure levels and all kinds of other things? Just not just like, oh, these guys are cool, or oh, these guys seem like they'd be somebody I want to go hang out with or whatever. Like I guess the point of this conversation is that though it was extremely fun for us to talk about all this, we also did bake into some things how we think and how other companies should think when they're approaching this. This is hypothetical, but it's also could be related to like real life type of situations. So don't want to.
I will say, and I don't want to go off on a tangent here because you have your third and final pick, but like we see all too often companies go sign somebody just to sign somebody. There's no strategic fit there. I see it every single day right now. I have conversations with people all the time, and I scratch my head thinking like, why? Like, why are you paying this person money to represent your brand when they don't There's no fit there. And I think that's where ego comes into play. It's like, I need to sign a bodybuilder. I need to sign this person. I need to sign somebody for notoriety. No, you don't. If there's not a good fit there, don't do it. And as you can see, like, my 3 picks, obviously couldn't afford them, but they all fit the concept that I presented at the beginning of the show. So far, 2 of your 3 have done, and I'm sure your third one is going to be just as well aligned with what you're doing.
You were close to my third pick. You were starting to get hot, and then I think you got a little bit more off track. But I am picking a Shark Tank person.
I knew it.
Just because there's a main reason why I'm picking the person I'm picking, and that is Mark Cuban, and not necessarily for maybe the reasons because he's the richest shark out there. It's because he is the one that has the most hatred towards these types of products, like supplements or anything that's like unproven. If you guys have watched Shark Tank for any number of episodes, he is just like, he tears them apart. He just hates supplement companies or anybody that's touting like functional benefits that don't have like all these like massive studies behind them. He assumes that you should have a bunch of pharmaceutical studies behind every single thing. And why I'm picking him is because he's such a hater in our space. If I could flip him and he's a part of my brand and he's an advocate of it, it's going to have a lot more weight than anybody else, because I have a ton of footage of him just like trashing everybody else. And then now he is fully supporting my things. And it's because of all these other things I'm going to have with science back this and whatever other things I'm going to have around my brand, my kind of like goals with my brand. So I think that he would be a pretty unique one to pick. I also think that he's super relatable, even though he's a billionaire. I think he's one of a lot of the people that I picked outside of Elon Musk, because I think Elon Musk's dad had some cash and things. They're also very much like self-made. Yeah. So it's they didn't really come from anything. Mark was a Pittsburgh guy that kind of was a poor kid. I think Jeff Bezos didn't really come from much, and then Elon kind of took it. I'm picking it for a much different reason than just being self-made, but I want that to be a core of my business, because if not, people are going to think, well, it's kind of like signing big bodybuilders that are Mr. Olympia and then having them attached to a supplement brand, like thinking you got big by those supplements.
Right.
You didn't get big by so similar in my sense. Like, I got to have people that maybe relate to more of the self-made aspect of it, because a lot of the people that are going to be buying my lifestyle brand are going to be also probably self-made.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's. I was going to say. I thought you were going to say Richard Branson, and because he's been on Shark Tank several times. Yeah. He's written like 20 books. He owns an airline company, and he's also very successful. So, but it's. I think they're all good fits. And here's the risk you have with Mark Cuban. If he doesn't flip, well, now you have a wasted asset. but if you can show him how much money you can make, then maybe he'll be all on board. So yeah. Mark Cuban doesn't believe in sports nutritional supplements, but he believes in stuff like this. Cheap plug for Gronk. He'll invest in a Gronkowski company that mixes those supplements he doesn't believe in, because it's a money-making venture. I want to wrap up the show with something that we didn't talk about this, and I like doing this sometimes because it puts us on the spot, but like in our space, the sports nutrition space that we play in, what do you think, or who do you think has one of the best strategic fits in terms of an athlete or an influencer that's attached to the brand? And I'll start. And this is you and I both have had experience with Matt Hesse and Performix, and I think what they did with John Cena. I'm not just saying this because I'm a former wrestler. I'm saying the strategic fit with John Cena and what they're doing with their FitOps program, I think, is brilliant. It's hands down such a great strategic fit, because John is somebody who believes in our U.S. military, always has been, was the first to raise his hand, sign up, and go do some stuff with the tributes to the troops. He obviously works out a lot, so he can represent Performix, the brand, at the same time, push and help out that FitOps program, which he just, vowed to donate $1 million or match $1 million for the program. And I was like, and there's a lot of other great strategic fits as well, obviously, but that's the one that stands out to me most right now. One, because it's very recent for me. I was just there. You were just there as well. But I think it's just a great overall fit in terms of, here's the core company, but then we have this nonprofit that we really support, that John can kind of help us bridge the gap between the two in a successful way that makes it authentic, because it is very authentic, that I just think is a no-brainer. It's such a great fit for Matt Hesse, the Performix team, and John Cena.
I mean, I agree with that one. That one's a great pick. I mean, that was initially where I was kind of thinking, but not to duplicate your answer. Mine's maybe not going to sound as great, but I was kind of thinking after you mentioned that and kind of changing up my idea was more geared towards a company we talk about a lot on here is just like with Ghost lifestyle. And maybe that's just because I'm also building a lifestyle brand that it's going to be that's obviously taken from them because everything that has used the word lifestyle is obviously comes from Ghost lifestyle. But right. I really like at least they're starting off with like Christian Guzman. I think that at the time, especially 3 years ago or whatever, when the business was started, he was extremely aligned, like in terms of what he was saying in his own YouTube, his own personal brand or whatever. And I think that because he was very well connected friendship wise or just to the overall meaning behind Ghost, like with Dan and Ryan and them really mashing up pretty well. I think it was like a really good first pick. Also, he was like a rising star in terms of like the fitness influencer space at the time. He's obviously gotten to a very large level now, but I think he was a really good fit for just what they were trying to accomplish. Like with both Dan and Ryan also having like a little bit of a sense of like putting themselves out there in their own sense. But they didn't want to go fully out there, at least initially at the beginning. So it was useful to have somebody like Christian be able to tell that story in a way that could reach consumers on a much closer level because he has, 500,000, 1 million followers on YouTube. And it was just one of those things where if you're going to start a brand and you're trying to align with a fitness influencer, that was a pretty good pick right off the bat.
And I think what we have in common with both our picks is both the people that we picked aren't owners in the company. Like they're not CEOs of the company, right? We could have said Chris Gethin is a great, right? But that's his company. Like it's his thing. Or Katie Hearn, it's her thing with Alani New Studo, But like, so we picked people that these companies actually went out and essentially signed. I mean, obviously Christian's got a relationship with Ryan and Dan. John didn't have a previous relationship at all. He just believed in the mission. So I guess our takeaway is if we want to be educational on this podcast, and we do, is if you're a brand owner out there and you're thinking about signing somebody or going after somebody, like the moral of the story is like don't sign anybody that's not a strategic fit, that does not believe in the mission and what you're doing, because there's no way for them to be authentic about what you're doing is if they don't believe in it or don't follow that type of quote unquote lifestyle. And I think that's why you see brands that have great strategic fits be so successful, like a Christian Guzman with Ghost, because they are authentic and that is the lifestyle that they live in. They do believe that stuff, and it just promotes everything that the brand wants, and that's such a great fit. And those are people you want to hang on to forever. Yeah,
totally agree with you. I mean, I think it's, bringing it back to an earlier point in this podcast for me. I mean, it's around authenticity. Like, can you make a plan with all aspects of your marketing or all aspects of your business? Can it align well? Because if it doesn't, consumers now could poke holes through it, and they have available substitutes in the market. They don't need to buy from you if you're not giving them the reason to do that and reinforcing that reason through all your actions. So just make sure you are thinking fully through that, because this game is not getting any easier. It's only getting more difficult. And if you're not thinking fully through this all, you're going to have a lot of trouble in the future.
Yeah, 100%. If you like what you heard here today, hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. Follow us over at social media. We're on 2 Guys, 1 Shaker Cup. Love to hear some more information on topics you want to hear. We do have a handful of topics we're going to talk about in the future, but if there's something that pops up in these comments that's interesting, we'll talk about it tomorrow if we have to. So until next time, it's Joshua Shaw with the Christian Guzman 3D cans in the background. Cheap plug for him. That's why he said Christian Guzman, because he's got chapstick on people. Just keep that in mind. And your boy here. Thanks everybody for tuning in this week. We appreciate it.